Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to this information session about the Venturous Playwright Fellowship at Playwrights Center. We are really excited that you're here, that you're considering an application, and that you want to get some more information. My name is Julia Brown. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Artistic Programs Manager here at Playwright Center, which means for the purposes of this info session, I do a lot of the facilitating of the application and selection process for this program and some of our other ones as well. And I am joined by
Hi, I am Pirronne Yousefzadeh. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Associate Artistic Director here at Playwrights Center, and I am the point of contact for playwrights and for theaters as you're figuring out a potential partnership and, as you have questions potentially about the sort of content of the application or the spirit of the Venturous Award.
Awesome. I'm going to start right away with a screen share so that as we're talking about some of this information, you're also seeing where you can find it if you need a reminder. So quickly, Perone, can you see the Venturous website?
I sure can.
Fabulous. It worked. So here you'll see this URL, venturoustheaterfellowship.org. This is also linked from the Playwright Center program page if it's easier to find that way. But this is also the link that you have probably a dozen times in your email somewhere from me. One quick thing, we're not going to spend time with the list itself, but if you have this link and you haven't had a chance to look at the list, what you do here is click the Venturous playlist in this upper corner. If you don't yet have the password, you click the request access button. This sends a message to me saying, hey, I want the password to view the list. So it just asks you some information, including who playwrights should contact if they're interested in proposing a joint application with you. This is not an automatic thing, so I do actually have to read the email and send you one. So there may be a little bit of a delay between the time you request it and the time you get the password. Then once you have the password, it'll take you to this page where you'll enter the password and see the full list. Each entry in the list has the title, the playwright, a quote from a nominator, a little synopsis of the play, a little bio of the playwright, and then here to the right are two links, one to download the play script and one to contact either the playwright or their agent or representation. So that will be, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at who all is nominated and what plays are in the running, definitely take some time with this list. But now I'm going to go back to the main page. All of the information you need is on this same page. You just have to scroll down. I know that's been confusing for a couple people, like, where's the application information? Just keep scrolling and you will find it. Here is a recording of our info session that we had in November. If today goes well, we will replace it with this video. Hopefully we won't forget a ton of stuff.
Pressure
But, but that is the plan. So if you need to revisit or share with colleagues, the video will be here. Perone, I would love it if you could talk a little bit about kind of the inspiration behind the fellowship, the purpose, and kind of this mission, where this came from.
Sure. So some might remember hearing the term, like the term the Venturous Award or Venturous Fellowship when this was housed at the Lark Play Development Center. May their memory be a blessing. And when the Lark closed and their programs were being rehomed, the Playwright Center sort of took on this fellowship, but made significant changes to it. Whereas before plays were awarded on their own, now plays and theaters, playwrights and theaters come together and partner on an application. And so whereas previously the awardees would then seek out a production opportunity with the production subsidy, now it is sort of baked into the application that partnership has already been established. And the amounts of the awards have also changed, and other sort of benefits for the writers have been added as well. But to talk about what it is now, the mission of the Venturous Playwright Fellowship is to build a lasting relationship between playwrights and Playwright Center, and provide these playwrights with the necessary resources to sustain them in writing bold and theatrical new work for the theater. We want to support the development of risk-taking plays and offer transformative support that advances the fellowship recipients' careers, and build intentional relationships between these writers and producing theaters to move these plays to production, providing financial support that enables theaters to produce them, and empowering the venturous playwrights as they shepherd their work. When we say venturous, and everyone will, of course, interpret these terms slightly differently from one another. But what we're after here are plays that are formally adventurous. By that we mean that they break traditional narrative structures, or they may defy the notion of narrative altogether. They're epic in scope. They include challenging production requirements, such as larger casts or difficult or ambitious design elements, and they're full of bold ideas. They handle topics that are rarely explored in the theater, or they present ideas in a new way. And what we're finding, obviously, in the landscape and in this current moment is that, these plays are challenging to produce, even in, of course, the best of circumstances. And we are not right now in the best of circumstances in the field. And so the hope is that through this fellowship, these plays can feel more achievable to producing theaters with the aid of the production subsidy, and also the development that is housed and supported through this award and at Playwrights Center. Venturous theaters demonstrate a wholehearted commitment to new and venturous work. They approach the fellowship as an exciting opportunity to produce a new play with enhanced vision and ambition relative to the theater's typical capacity. And they're interested in collaboration with a playwright in an artist-centered process built on transparency and trust. And so those, we can talk more about sort of best practices, or things that we've learned after one cycle, as they may be useful to you if you have specific questions around that. But those are sort of the core tenets, I would say, of what Venturous plays are, and what partner theaters, what qualities they tend to exhibit.
I'll just
Um,
hop in really quickly. Thank you so much for that. You'll see in these nominated plays that there are some that maybe fit all three of those characteristics very clearly. And there may be some that perhaps are formally experimental but have a small cast, or have kind of a lot of design elements but are a more traditional narrative structure. So in terms of eligibility, all of the plays on the nominee list are eligible for that program. I would say the kind of three bullet points under the Venturous theaters are, they all, I think, should apply to each theater interested in creating this kind of partnership. And one of the things about the Venturous Fund, they are really invested in kind of moving pieces from the development stage into production. That's why there is this partnership. That's why there is this production subsidy and commitment to the productions happening within a certain time frame. They also have a couple of other programs that you may be interested in looking at that you might be able to also apply for. I especially want to highlight the Venturous Capital grants. I believe those applications open in May, so it would be quite a bit later than this process. But just if you're looking perhaps for this partnership or a different partnership that is not a nomination-based process, you may want to just give a look at the Venturous website and see if there are other opportunities to help you get plays into production there as well. Let's look, as we've been mentioning a couple of times, the only plays in consideration for this program are nominated. This is our only nomination-based program that we have at Playwright Center. And how that works is, this past summer, we came up with a list, quite a long list of playwrights.
Yeah, 100 and up. Yep. Yeah, they still need to be envelopes still have to
I'm
be up.
just gonna mute. There we go. Um, it was a list of playwrights who are in our networks, who are connected to other playwrights who they themselves may write plays that fit the Venturous descriptions. We ended up with about 52 of those playwrights who we invited to nominate a piece by one of their peers, by a fellow playwright. People could not nominate themselves. And then based on that list, we reached out. We said, hey, are you all interested in being a nominee for this program? And that is where that list came from. Each year, we have a different group of nominators. So every 2 years, when we do this process, the list will be completely new and created by some of the same people, but some new people as well. Pirronne, would you tell us a little bit about some of the benefits that a playwright specifically would receive as a fellow?
Absolutely. Selected fellows receive $60,000 over the course of 2 years. That's actually an increase from the previous cycle. And along with that, over $15,000 um, per year in development and holistic artist support and travel, housing to engage with the work of other artists, and also for the purposes of their workshop at the Playwright Center. I want to name very specifically that the development funds that are attached to this award are for use at the Playwright Center for the workshop, not to be and not part of the production subsidy that the theaters receive, nor are we able to shift that development workshop to the partner theater to have it happen there. It's important and a key part of this that the playwright and the center are developing a relationship, that this is an opportunity to engage with the incredible artistic community here in the Twin Cities. I will also say that, we have had the artistic director or other staff from the partner theaters working with Venturous awardees travel to the center for those readings. So that is definitely, it isn't that it's like closed to the partner theater, but it is important that it takes place here. Um, and In addition to that, at the end of the fellowship term, all fellows become affiliated writers of the Playwright Center. And what that means is that they gain access to, or retain the access to, that they have as Venturous Fellows, to our newsletters of opportunities and goings on at the center, as well as the ability to then apply for our public season in perpetuity. So once a writer becomes an affiliated writer of the center, they are an affiliated writer for life, unless they don't want to be. So that's just another one of the sort of perks of the fellowship. And then to talk a little bit about what partner theaters receive. Partner theaters receive a production subsidy of up to $75,000 to support the theater's productions of these plays. The reason we say up to 75,000 is because it cannot exceed 50% of the production budget. So if, for instance, the production budget is expected to be $120,000, then the production subsidy that theater would receive would be half of that, which is $60,000. If it is more than $150,000, it's the theater still receives $75,000 for the production subsidy. That is the maximum amount.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
To highlight just a couple other things that expanding on what Perone talked about, this workshop that the fellows are offered once per year of the 2-year program. At least one of the years, you are required to work on the Venturous play. What year that is, or how much of the time you want to spend on it, will depend on a lot of things, including when your actual premiere is scheduled for. But the other year, it is up to you if you want to work on the same play or you want to work on something entirely different. For example, one of our current Venturous Fellows had their world premiere production last summer and then still had an entire second year of the program. So they decided to workshop some brand new pieces that are super, super early and just kind of work on generating new text. That's a perfectly fine way to use those funds. And for the development workshop that maybe doesn't have to do with your Venturous play, you do not have to work with the partner theater or involve them in that workshop unless you want to. Um, to reiterate what Pirronne said, this workshop is separate from any production specific development you are hoping to do as a theater getting ready for production. And it's important to us that the workshops that happen here at Playwright Center are playwright led. So we will be in conversation with the playwright about their goals, their collaborators, how they want to structure that workshop, all of that, which may be different to a development process that is specifically leading into production where we have to involve these designers, we have to have this specific cast, we have to work on these specific things because we're about to head into rehearsal. So just to kind of draw that line. There are also some funds in there dedicated to sort of further engagement, either with the cohort of Venturous Fellows or the Playwright Center more broadly. And that can involve going to see the world premiere of your fellow fellows plays. It could be coming out to Playwright Center an additional time to spend time with our local writing community here. There can be another event that's important to you that you attend. So just so that you know that there's kind of a variety of support within that in those funds. And there's always staff support as well from Pirronne and from the broader Playwright Center staff, whether that's dramaturgically, talking about your career. Our relationship with these playwrights is not solely about these specific plays. It's about their whole work and craft and career as a writer. Quick note here that every theater can apply once, whether you're applying in partnership with other theaters as well, and every playwright and play can apply once. So you wouldn't be able to find kind of a bunch of different theaters who are interested in your play and then duke it out, if that makes sense. Question here in the chat, can the total production budget include in kind? So if the total production budget is over 150K, including in-kind contributions, can we still apply for the full 75 in production funding? Pirronne, do you have thoughts on that?
Such a good question. And I think I would need to check in with the Venturous Theater Fund about that. I think what is important, however, is that that this is sort of a matching grant to the theater's financial commitment to the play. So I am unsure of how they would feel about what give a $75,000 subsidy if, let's say, there was a significant portion that was also in kind. So I will have to get back to you on that one, Andrea.
Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah.
As you may notice, this is our second cycle of it being at Playwright Center. So unlike some of our other programs where we have 50 years of data and information and questions people have asked, there's a lot of questions we're getting for the first time. Looking on to guidelines and eligibility, some of this Pirronne has already touched on. Pirronne, did you want to read through this or would you like me to?
Sure, I'm happy to. In applying, essentially what a theater is saying, if selected, is that they are committing to a full professional world premiere production of the selected play, which opens within 3 years of the fellowship announcement in June of 2025, which means that by the end of June of 2028, the world premiere needs to have opened. The run can continue into, say, July of 2028, but it has to begin in June of 2028 by the very latest. Productions must run for at least 16 performances and have an official press opening. The theaters must provide the playwright with a minimum of a 2-week residency at the theater during the rehearsal and production process, including travel and housing as necessary, and to compensate the playwright for their time in rehearsals, auditions, and any development workshops that take place outside of the Playwrights Center. The theater also is required to provide a royalty or other reasonable compensation to the playwright upon production of the play. So I just really want to highlight here that that the playwright's time and rehearsal, etc., it needs to be separately acknowledged and compensated from the royalty for the production of the play itself.
And one question that has come up, this payment to the playwright is completely separate from the $60,000 that they get as a fellowship stipend from Playwright Center. So don't use that in your accounting at all. That is a check that goes directly from us to the playwright as an acknowledgement of their fellowship. It is not compensation for any of their work on the production.
Thanks, Julia. And once again, the subsidy cannot exceed 50% of the total production budget. These subsidies are made through the Venturous Theater Fund of the Tides Foundation. So that does not come from the Playwright Center, and that sort of contract and engagement happens between Tides, the Venturous Theater Fund, and the partner theaters. After selection, the theater is required to submit a production timeline, budget, and some other materials, and the fund and the center work together to determine these, the guidelines for these specific production subsidies. Just also want to highlight that the subsidy grant for the partner theaters may not be used to fund developmental workshops, non-equity productions, or equity showcase code productions. Co-productions are permitted, and I would even say encouraged, as long as all producing partners are eligible for support under these guidelines. Each theater may only apply once, whether or not you're applying with another theater or organization. So if you're doing a co-production application, that's, in the words of Eminem, you only got one shot. All right. And
One
theaters.
quick thing, sorry, just about co-productions. You don't at this point need to know exactly how you would divvy up the production subsidy, if at all. That's something that if you're selected, you will work out with the Venturous Fund, whether that's 2 theaters splitting 50-50, whether that's the main theater that's housing the production gets all of it, and the partner theater contributes to that. So you don't have to completely have it worked out mathematically at the time of application.
And yes, and to Rachel's question in the chat, whether an AEA special appearance contract qualifies, it does. Yes, the only contract that we cannot support is the equity showcase code, but or non-equity productions. And theaters can be any size, but must be a 501c3 or operate under the fiscal sponsorship of a 501c3 organization. Theaters must have an agreement with Actors Equity, and each production of a selected play must include a minimum of 2 Actors Equity actor contracts. We have had a question about a solo play, and if there's a minimum of 2 actor contracts, what does that mean for a solo play? The recommendation I have made is that would have to apply to the performer and their understudy. If there is no understudy, then I think that requires some further conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Now getting a little bit into the application and selection process. And thank you everyone for questions. Please feel free to keep dropping them in the chat, or, raise a hand if you want to unmute or things like that as we go. The timeline for this has adjusted. I think you all have probably received an email about this, but in case not, we have pushed this application deadline back by a few weeks to February 27th. Another question here from Nikki. If one theater applies with a playwright, can another theater that's smaller also apply for the Venturous Capital Grant, or is that double dipping? You know, that's a good question. The capital grant is completely unrelated to Playwright Center, so I don't have their specific guidelines memorized. The Venturous may decide that if you receive this fellowship, that they don't also want to give you a capital grant. But I don't know if they have guidelines saying you can't apply. I will say that if you apply for this fellowship and don't end up getting it, you can certainly apply and receive the capital grant. But I would need to look more in depth on their website about their guidelines. And since they don't open until May, they may not have fully updated guidelines on the website at this moment. But I think certainly if it says you're eligible, go for it. I say apply for anything that you're eligible for. So in our timeline here, we're kind of in this stage right now with folks getting their partnerships together. We've been recommending to writers to try and solidify your partnership with at least a month to go before the deadline, which now we've got some extra time. So hopefully there's more time to make these partnerships. Just keep in mind that if you're a playwright or an individual artist, I know I'm this way, it can be relatively easy to put an application together in a couple of days or right before the deadline. When you're working with a theater, that's often not the case because the theater will need to talk to, their general management, their production management, their development, their grant writers, all of those kinds of things. And each person that needs to be looped in is kind of an extra 4 or 5 days of processing time. So do keep that in mind as you are trying to make these connections. Earlier is definitely better. We are always available to talk through the program, strategizing, things like that. The application is due, as I said, on the 27th of February. We'll talk way more about the application in just a moment. But the way that the process works is after we receive your applications, I will go through and screen everything for eligibility, make sure that it is the play that was nominated, that all of the theaters are eligible, all of the documents can open and be read, and all of those important things. Then it is shared with a first round of evaluators. And these evaluators can be producers, directors, dramaturgs, other playwrights, literary staff, other artistic staff, educators, folks who really spend their time and have a specialty in new work. And they will be reading both the theater and playwright applications side by side. They will give a lot of in-depth comments and a numerical score on each application. Each application is read at least 2 times. And then based on their responses and their scores, we narrow the pool down to a finalist group. There is one extra step in the finalist process for this specific program. For playwrights, there is not an extra step for you. And actually, everybody who applies will be paid an honorarium. Every playwright who applies will be paid an honorarium. If you become a finalist, we will let you know via email. We will ask, hey, theater, are you still committed to this production should you be selected? And we'll ask you to kind of fill out and sign a piece of paperwork that says, if you tell me that we get this fellowship, yes, we are moving ahead with the production. So if anything changes between now and April, that is fine. We will just ask you to be transparent about that at that point in the process. We will also ask the theater to get and send to us a letter of recommendation, which is slightly different than perhaps a standard application where the playwright gets the letter of recommendation. But we are asking theaters who become finalists to reach out to a playwright who they have worked with in the past on a new play and ask that writer to write a letter basically explaining their experience of working with your theater, why your theater is set up and has the capacity to produce a Venturous play, what that experience for the writer was in terms of collaboration and in terms of how were they involved in the process, things like that. You'll have a couple of extra weeks to get that letter. The writers who write the letter will also be compensated for their time by Playwrights Center. Then all of the finalist applications and these letters are shared with a final panel of 5 theater artists who are a mix of playwrights, producers, freelancers, who will then read all of those materials, have a long and in-depth discussion, and select the 4 Venturous Fellows. If you do not become a finalist, we will also let you know in April as well, after the pool is finalized and moved on to the panel. Then finalists will all hear from us in June, or by mid-June, and then we will be able to announce the fellows. At the time we announce the fellows, we are also going to publicly share the full list of nominees. And this is an exciting moment, and it's something I will reach out to all the nominated writers, whether or not you ended up applying, and ask if you have a new bio, a new synopsis, a new title, things like that. I'll also reach out to the nominators to see if they want to edit their quote. But on our website, we will share the entire list. And what's exciting about that is I also include my contact information there. And folks who look at the list will reach out to me and say, hey, I'm really excited to read Pirronne's play and Josh's play and Sandra's play. And then I will connect you with those interested parties and say, hey, Pirronne, this person at this theater is really excited to read your play. If you are interested, you can send them the draft here. So the ball is in your court as a playwright who you want to share the work with. I'm not going to make that decision for you, but I will absolutely let you know every time there's an opportunity for a connection. And I have been getting requests from the last time we shared this, which was in 2023, all the way up. I think my most recent request to read a play from that list was in November. So folks are looking at these lists and they are reaching out to read the plays. So that's an exciting part of the process, and hopefully a benefit to all of these writers, whether or not you actually end up applying. Before we dive into looking at the application itself, Pirronne, did you have any other things to mention about the process or anything that I missed in that timeline?
No, I think you hit upon everything. I think the other thing I just want to highlight is that, in terms of the time of putting the application together and the sort of time that it takes on an administrative side for the partner theater. I think also part of the impulse here in terms of wanting partnerships to be confirmed sooner rather than later is also around coordinating between the playwright and the theater what you are writing in your respective areas of the application in order to make sure you are just presenting the strongest case possible. And we can talk about that a little bit more here as we dig into the details and go through sort of what those different pieces of the application are. But just wanted to highlight that as well.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm going to do my best to keep us to an hour for this session, but I'm not optimistic that I'm able to do that. So do know that if you aren't able to stay past 1 o'clock, we will have this recording available for you because as you've noticed, this is a big program with a lot of moving parts and a lot of details to go over. This part of the website will take you through first the playwright and then the theater application materials. I'm not going to read through them here because I'm actually going to show you step by step. And I'm going to begin with the theater application because it's kind of the least similar to our other programs. Playwrights, as you apply, if you're also someone who applies for core writer or McKnight or other things like that, it's a little more familiar. So we're going to click right here on this place. This is where you access the application. I will highlight here that we have for both applications, we're sharing how people weigh the different parts of your application when they are evaluating and scoring. It's important to know that Pirronne, myself, Nicole, any Playwright Center staff is not actually involved in the selection decision. We are facilitators, so we make sure everyone is eligible. We make sure that we have a great group of evaluators and a great group of panelists who are passionate and generous of spirit and excited about the work. But our opinions do not factor in at all. And we don't read everyone's full script and give feedback or things like that. So this is how we instruct our evaluators and our panelists to approach the selection process. So I'm going to click here, and you'll see this is taking us away from that web page and into a new one. This application platform that we use is called Slide Room. You can see it here in the URL. If you are someone who is a Playwright Center member and you're used to logging in to the Playwright Center website, it's important to know that this is separate from that. So your member login is not going to just automatically work here. You're going to need to make an account. You'll want to make sure that you're on the right application. So this, make sure it says theater, Venturous Playwright Application Theater, because theaters are applying kind of in this room with these requirements, and playwrights are applying next door with these separate requirements. So I am going to make a new account, and I'm running out of email addresses to make dummy accounts. So we're going to try this one. But actually, because I haven't made the account yet, I can't enter the information. So I will click this sign up button. If you've applied for multiple programs through Slide Room, you may be able to use an existing login, but if you're a theater, that's probably less likely. So if you're a theater, I would definitely ask that you click the sign up button. So the first thing that it wants is an email address and to make a password. You'll want to read the terms of service, of course, and click sign up. I need to use a different email address. Okay. You can tell I do a lot of these info sessions every year. And there we go. So now what I will just have to do is click my activation link. And I'll be good to go. Great. And I'm going to shift my screen share to the other box. Thank you for your patience. Excellent. Log into the Slide Room account. So using what I just created, I'm going to log in, and you'll see this directory of all of these, the open programs. Now I'm going to first enter some information about myself. So I'm going to go up to, you'll just see your email address after you make the initial account. So that means we don't have a name for you. We don't have an address. We don't have any other information. So we'll need to click this drop down and click account information. Now you're going to register as, you can be either an individual or an organization or group. I'm actually going to ask you to register as an individual. And the reason I'm going to do this, and I'm going to ask you specifically to create your name in a very specific way, is because this will allow our evaluators to put your application and the playwright's application next to each other without being confused or accidentally reading Pirronne's play, but you know, the Goodman's application, when that's not what the partnership is. So I'm going to ask you to use the playwright's last name as the last name on the application. So let's say I'm going to apply with Carol Churchill. So I'm going to put Churchill as the last name. For the first name, I'm going to put the name of my theater, or if it's a partnership between multiple theaters, I will list multiple. So let's say that it's, you know, Playwright Center applying with, I'm going to make up the Green Theater, because I don't want to just say a name that exists. So this is the convention that we're going to use. The first name is your theater. The last name is the last name of the playwright. And that's just because the last name is how Slide Room organizes things. So this will let the evaluators put Churchill with Churchill and make sure that they're evaluating those two things together. If you are confused about this or have questions about it, please reach out to me. I'm happy to basically tell you, oh, this is exactly what the name should be on your account. Now I'm going to ask for the primary address, and you can pick one theater as sort of the representative, because eventually it will be one person creating this account and one person submitting the application. So I'll continue putting in my information for where I am and a phone number, and then we'll hit Save Changes. You can tell that it's saved because up here will change from your email address to the name that you've created. So I'm going to click back to Playwright Center. All right, come on now. Double check that my name is showing up, and now I pick the program that I want to apply for, which is Venturous Playwright Fellowship Theater. This is the breakdown that Pirronne took us through, so we don't need to go over that yet again. Down here at the bottom, you can preview the full application if you want to kind of get your materials together before you start entering things, but I'm going to click the Begin Application button. Generally in SlideRoom, blue is the active color. Blue means you can click on this, and underlined things generally mean you can click on them. So the first thing we're asking for is the names of all the theaters who are applying together. So we'll say Playwrights Center and the Green Theater. This can be, as many as you're applying with, or just one. Then you're going to choose one person to be the primary contact for this application on the theater side. So this should not be the playwright. This should be whoever is on your staff or, works with your theater, who is going to be the main person that I get in touch with if there are issues with the application. This is the person who will receive notification about if you become a finalist, if there are other questions that we have for you. So even if you have 3 theaters applying in partnership, pick one person from one of those theaters to be our primary contact. That just makes things a lot smoother, and it means that there's not miscommunication or games of telephone happening between multiple different people involved in the process. So we'll say I am the primary contact, and I will put in my phone number and also my email address. Now we're going to ask for the theater addresses. And the reason we ask for this is because this program is limited to theaters based in the United States. If for some reason you have a theater that's geographically in the US but has a non-US mailing address, reach out to me and let's talk about that specific situation. I think it's unusual to have happen, but it certainly can. So make sure you're including your city and your state as well. And then if there are multiple ones, we'll say the Green Theater is on Sesame Street in New York. So now we know that both of these are eligible theaters. Now we want the name of the partner playwright. And I'm going to say that Pirronne is our partner, or no, Carol Churchill, I already decided. Carol Churchill is my partner playwright. Only one playwright because you are only applying for one specific play, and it must be the playwright who wrote the eligible play that is on the nominator list. So you can't submit an application for a completely separate playwright who's not part of that list. If you do, your application just will not be considered. Then we want Carol's email address and phone number. And we use that just to make sure that we're pairing the applications together, and if we need to get in touch with them as well. The title of the nominated play. This does have to be the play that was nominated. However, if the title changed from the point at which it was nominated to the point of application, just let me know. I would like to know so I can update the list, certainly, but also so that I don't look at this and say, hey, this is the wrong play. So playwrights, if you are updating the titles, just make sure I'm in the loop about that. Now we're asking about eligibility. These are all the eligibility guidelines that Pirronne took us through, so I won't reread them, but we're asking, are you eligible to apply? And we will answer yes. One thing that I wish Slide Room did, but it doesn't. If you were to answer no, I'm not eligible, Slide Room does not kick you out. I wish it did, but it's not quite smart enough to do that. And the reason I bring it up is every year for every program, there's somebody who fills out a full application, even though they know they're not eligible. And in that case, it's kind of a waste of their time because we do not move those applications onto the evaluation round and they're not in consideration. So if you aren't eligible, I would not go through the process of filling out a full application. Now we're also asking, if you are selected, do you agree to follow these terms and produce the world premiere? Hopefully the answer is yes. And then certifying, is this information true and correct to the best of your knowledge? So I'll say yes. You probably saw down here it said auto saving. It does that every few seconds. You can always click save, but it also does it automatically as well. There are two ways to move on: continue to the next step or the blue next button. Now, this is the main part of the application, the attachments. This is basically what is being evaluated and scored. Another reminder of how the scores are weighted. Also, a note that the primary language that we use in this selection process is English. That doesn't mean that no parts of this application or no parts of the play can be in a different language. It just means that we can't guarantee that any of our panelists or evaluators have a facility in a language other than English. So if it's your intention for some text to be untranslated in another language, that's absolutely fine. If you do, however, want the folks who are reading your application to understand that text, you may want to include a translation or a summary or a note, something like that. This applies to both the all the other application materials and the play itself. So the first thing we're asking for is the playwright match statement. There is only one of these per application. So if you are applying in partnership, you should write about all of the theaters that are applying together at this point. It's a one-page statement, so I definitely recommend writing a few drafts and getting it edited to a form that you feel confident in. And the questions we're asking is, why is this play and this playwright a good match for your theaters? That's going to be different for everybody. The reason that you created this partnership, it is going to be very unique and specific to you. So in some cases, it might be about the geography, the community, or the demographics of the people in your community, the resources that you have as a theater or that exist where you are, specific collaborators or staff members who would be involved in the production, the mission statement of your theater. All of those are things that might impact this on the theater side. And then on the play side, it might be the content, the themes, the aesthetic, the process, how this writer approaches their work, and how does that sort of vibe with how you approach your work as a producing theater, and the specific Venturous aspects of the play. Pirronne, do you have any advice for this match statement and what makes it effective?
Specificity, I think, first and foremost. And I also just want to, allay any concerns. If this isn't a long-standing relationship between the partner theater and the playwright, that is okay. And it is valid for it to be a new relationship, and it is also valid for it to be the continuation of a longer term relationship. I think just being clear about that and being clear about what that context is, as well as like if it is a new relationship, like what is it that makes this feel like a real meaningful alignment beyond being a theater that does new work and this being a new play. I think, Julia, you hit upon it in a great way, and this is also where I think coordination with the writer to talk about like what the writer is saying on their side of the application and what you're saying on your side of the application as the partner theater, to ensure that those things are complementary without being redundant, because you have only so much real estate, as it were, in this application to make your case. And so as rounded as you can be in offering those different perspectives that align and that show that the theater and the playwright have really talked through like what this partnership looks like and what that alignment is, I think that's really important.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and that is a question that I've gotten a few times is how similar should the match statement be from the theater side and the playwright side? And I think the evaluators really want to see that you've talked about this, that, one isn't coming in saying, and I'm going to get a pony, and the other side coming in saying, we are going to give everyone ice cream. But you also, as Pirronne said, don't want to just copy and paste full paragraphs from one to another, because this should come from the perspective of the theater, and the playwright side, which we'll see in a couple minutes, should come from the voice and perspective of the playwright. We will only be able to accept PDF documents. Another thing I wish that Slide Room did, but they do not, is they will allow you to upload a different document, a Word doc, a JPEG, a text edit, anything like that. But unfortunately, we can't then open it on the back end. So if you upload a document in a different format, you're going to get an email from me saying, hey, I'm going to need you to change out this document. So it's faster to just go from a PDF from jump. If you are unfamiliar with making PDFs, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk you through it. As I upload the document, I'll see a little preview so I can kind of double check that, yeah, this looks like the right document. If it's not, or if I want to update it, all I have to do is click this little trash can. It will get rid of the document and I can re-upload something else. You can always leave your application and come back. And the way to do that is up here in the right-hand corner, click Save and Exit. Then all you have to do is log back into Slide Room and you can continue your application from the point that you left off. The next thing we're asking for is a production subsidy proposals. And I want to highlight this word in the first sentence, a written statement that articulates the imagined use of the production subsidy. You do not need to have a rehearsal schedule with a specific number of hours, and we know that we're going to call this person for this many days. It does not have to be 100% worked out or, committed to at this stage. But we are interested in seeing that you've thought about it. And this is really the place where you can make the case for this production subsidy will allow us to do XYZ with the production of this play that maybe we usually aren't able to do. So how will the funds allow you to realize the production that best expresses the venturous nature of the play? It may be the case that we love the play, but if we were doing it without the production subsidy, we would not be able to make the accurate casting. We would not be able to have the amazing set piece that comes in Act 3. We would not be able to house the playwright for an extended period of time that is required for this process. We wouldn't be able to hire all the translators necessary for the bilingual nature of the play. Those are all some examples of things that the production subsidy may allow you to do. You may want to think about materials, design support, artist care, casting, other factors, perhaps accessibility for certain artists that may otherwise make the play beyond your standard financial capacity. So what we want to see here is that it's not just, sure, would be nice to have 75K. That's true of everybody all the time. The fact that you've thought about it specifically when it comes to this play and that there would be an impact. You will notice that one of the things that is being talked about in the scoring is impact. The impact that the play might have on your community, but also the impact that this fellowship has. So if you've got your standard production budget is $10 million, and this is like a drop in the bucket that might cover some Ubers or something like that, that may not be as effective as being able to say, we are really excited to fully realize the ambition of this piece, and here is how this subsidy would allow us to do this. Because what the Venturous Fund and Playwright Center want to see are world premieres that are not a sort of damped down version of the play or a minimal version of the play or a compromised version of the playwright's vision, if that makes sense. So this is one of the ways to talk about some details that would allow you to actually create, the production that the play warrants, if that makes sense. I see we have a question. Can part of the case also be ability to have more development workshop with the playwright? Absolutely.
Um, well, I think we would have to just sort of drill into that a little bit more because it is a production subsidy, and it is specifically indicated that the production subsidy is not to be used towards workshop. But if, for instance, one was making a case for an extended rehearsal period, something
Yes,
that is,
yeah, that's what
that
I meant. Just when we do world premieres, sometimes often we don't have the ability to add a week or two to do sort of like the script work piece of
Yeah.
the rehearsal process before rehearsals dive in with staging and all that. So that, yes, exactly. That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that if it was part of the rehearsal process and you're talking about an extension in that, I think that's definitely a strong case that can be made.
Yeah. And I would say definitely, when we talk about it can't be used for workshop, that's sort of like a separate from the production process. Like, oh, a year before, we're going to bring you out and just kind of work on the text, that kind of thing. But if it's further development in the production process itself, that's absolutely something that you can talk about. And that's kind of where artist care comes in, and, being able to, sort of give them a comfortable and sort of equitable experience of that process. The next thing we're going to ask for is if you are applying just as one theater, you will only need to do one of
How do
these.
you feel? Are you feeling okay?
I'm going to just
Good.
mute our friend real quick. Awesome. But if you scroll down, you'll see that there are space for other sample budgets for additional theaters. If you are applying in a group of more than 3 theaters, reach out to me so I can just make sure there's a space for as many additional documents as we need. But what we're asking for in the sample budget is a production budget for a play that your theater has produced in the last 3 years. Ideally, a play in somewhat comparable size to the nominated play. Now, we know that your past productions don't have this production subsidy, right? So we're not asking that you have to prove that you have, produced a play with $150,000 budget without that additional assistance, right? But what we are looking for with this is basically sort of proof that you have the capacity to work on a new play, that you have, that you're showing your values and your priorities through this budget. And to give us a sense of sort of how productions tend to happen where you are, given, supplies and personnel and all those kinds of things that differ from place to place. You may also want to note any particular big changes in budget, like this was 2 years ago and cost of labor has gone up significantly, or materials, have gone up significantly, things like this. You can also mention things from your sample budget in this production subsidy proposal. They can go hand in hand if it's helpful to be able to say, you'll see in this sample budget that the last, play that we did had a costume budget of XYZ. This play that we're applying with, Carol Churchill's play, requires all of these hats. And so we will be excited to use the production subsidy to really invest in the hat making and, the millinery staff that we're going to have to hire. And so that budget line will be much larger. Something like that. If that's helpful for you to frame out what you're looking at. In terms of this being sort of a past production budget, and Pirronne, let me know if you disagree on this, because this is a question I recently got. If the play is about to open but has not closed yet, do you think that production budget would be allowed if the majority of the expenses and actuals are in, but the play itself hasn't officially closed yet? What do you think about that?
I think that would be fine. I mean, I would say, like, if that feels like the budget that feels the most comparable to the play that you're applying with, then I can see the reason why you would want to go that route. And I would just recommend that you're very clear about like what hasn't yet been reconciled and what, you know, what expenses you're still sort of are still ahead, in order to just give the panel the clearest and the readers the clearest picture of where you're at.
That's great. Thank you so much. I agree. If you're thinking about a co-application, we also are aware that different size theaters have different sized budgets. So I wouldn't be terribly concerned if perhaps theater 1 is a little bit bigger, theater 2 is a little bit smaller. So the sample budgets from theater 2 are necessarily on a slightly different scale than this proposed project where you would be pooling resources along with the subsidy. So it's less about what the overall like bottom line number was for that production. It's really about kind of how your standards for how people are paid, what kind of expenses go into productions at your theater, things like this. Great. I know some people have had to leave, but that is okay because we will have a recording. So I am going to add a document for this. You'll see that the first sample budget is the only one that's required. If you don't have partner theaters, you can just disregard all of the stuff about theater 2 and theater 3. The last thing we're asking for is proof of 501c3 status. So this can be a not-for-profit letter, a 990, another tax document, basically anything that we can look at and share with the Venturous Fund to say, yes, this is a 501c3 or is operating under the fiscal sponsorship of a 501c3, which means they can pay you. So this is kind of the least, I guess, subjective part and the least creative part of the application. If you're not sure what counts for this requirement, just reach out to me and we can talk about what you have access to. Again, it will need to be a PDF. So now as we've attached everything, we'll say that I'm only submitting for one theater. It's ready to go to the next step. Once you submit your application, you can't make any changes. However, if you do need to or you realize you made a mistake, you can reach out to me anytime between now and the deadline, and I can unsubmit your application. You can go back in and edit and resubmit. I cannot do that after the deadline has passed. Once the evaluation process has started, we can't make any changes to either of the applications. We talked a little bit about the timeline, so I won't re-go over that. But another highlight that the staff does not participate in the decision. There are a couple of ways, pardon me, to save your work if you would like. You can review the whole application here. You can print it if that's helpful for your records. I know especially when it comes to grants departments and development departments, it's kind of nice to have multiple records of these applications. But I'll just click my submit button. And if I get the happy green check mark, it means it all went through, it was received. You'll see that you're given a confirmation number. You don't have to save it. If you need me to address your application, just tell me the name of the theater and the name of the playwright, and I'll be able to find it. But if you like to save confirmations, go nuts. You can print this page, you can print the whole application. And then here is a reminder of the timeline. The next time you will hear from us will be by the end of April. So that is the theater application. And now I am going to go to the playwright application very quickly. So hopping back to another page. Oh, for Pete's sake. Why is my screen share not working? All right. Pirronne, are you seeing my screen at all? And what are you seeing?
And congratulations, you have successfully submitted your application.
Gotcha. Okay, great. I am not sure where that just went. And I cannot stop the share, and my Zoom is frozen. All right. Give me a second here.
It looks like I can stop your share. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. Julia, are you still there?
Hi.
Hello.
Did the meeting stop?
Nope. It looks
Oh,
like
good.
we're still in and we're recording.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
just
my Zoom
stopped the
froze
share to
and
do to see if it could it's like turn it off and turn it back on again.
yeah, great. I've never had Zoom just completely kick me off the world. Awesome. Um, ready to screen share. My Lord. There we go. Thank you for your patience, everybody. That was an unusual thing to have happen. Great. So we're back to our Venturous website. And now we'll look at the Playwright application. And this will be relatively quick because a lot of what we've already talked about is covered here. So I will, here you'll see the weight of the different parts of this application. Some of it is similar to the theater application, but we also want to hear a little bit about or think about how this fellowship impacts you as an individual writer, separate from just the production. So I'm going to click here to access the application in Slide Room. And as a sort of fresh person looking at this, now I will put in the application that, or the information that I have as an individual. Right. I'm going to make myself a new account. Pirronne, while I figure this out, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the thinking about the playwright match, the playwright and theater match statement from the playwright's perspective and what they might want to keep in mind as they're creating that side of things?
Sure. I think it's sort of similar to what I was saying about the theater side of it, which is, again, that sort of sense of specificity around what alignment you see with that theater. Is it in terms of aesthetic? Is this like either, for instance, like a long-term relationship that is deepening and growing, or do you see that you are, say like simpatico with some of the other writers that they've supported and programmed over the years? And how is the work that you're doing in this particular play maybe in conversation with some of the other work that they've produced? And I would say also to think about this in terms of a sense of alignment of core values. Theaters all have their mission statements and their value statements posted on their websites. And I think, as individual artists, we all also have our own, whether or not they are articulated in such a public way. And so, if it is, for instance, something that is around, the community engagement work that they do and how this play, is something that will really benefit from that or really be enhanced or deepened by that. If it's around, their approach to supporting complex design values or sort of aesthetics that are more experimental or adventurous, as it were. And so whatever that may be, to talk about that and how it really intersects with you as an artist and your play, and what will set your play up for success in being premiered at that partner theater.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we're logged in and we are here. We will click the Venturous Playwright Fellowship Playwright application. Again, do be sure you're on the sort of right side of the application. And as before, I'll click Begin Application. This is kind of the basic information that we just went through. The playwrights also need to be able to be paid in the United States because we are paying that large stipend. So you do not necessarily need to be a citizen of the United States, but you do need to have whatever paperwork allows us to pay you that money without getting in trouble with the IRS. Pronouns are completely optional, but just know that throughout this process, we and the evaluators and the panelists will be talking about you and talking about your work. And so having pronouns listed helps us do that in an accurate way. Then we'll want your partner theaters. So I'm applying with Playwrights Center and the Green Theater. Make sure you include all of them. If there's a discrepancy between this and the theater application, I will need to reach out and make sure that's clear so that our evaluators don't get confused about what they're looking at. We had asked initially in that theater application for the primary contact person, so please do include that as well. One of the reasons that we ask for this is if, for example, Pirronne the playwright submits an application and I don't see anything from Playwright Center, this is the contact that I'll be able to use to say, hey, Bob Jones, Pirronne submitted her side of the application. I don't see one from your theater. What's up with that? When are you going to get this application in? So that's one of the reasons we ask for it on the playwright application, just in case we don't actually have something from the theater and therefore we have no contact information for them. The title of the play, again, if it has changed, let me know, but it does have to be the nominated play. It's okay if the play has been rewritten since last summer. It probably has for most of you, but it should be, you know, at least has started as that initial nominated play, if that makes sense. Andrea, great question. Yes, for the login as a playwright, just use your name. You'll see because I do so many of these info sessions, I run out of discrete and separate email addresses to use for them. So this name that popped up for me was a different structure. As a playwright, just use your own personal name. Now we're asking, are you eligible? Again, I'm going to say yes, and this is true and correct. It auto-saved there, so I can continue to the next step. This is a form that exists in the playwright application, but not in the theater application because the playwright application is from an individual and the theater is from an organization. We do ask and provide a demographic survey for every single one of our playwright fellowships and our theater artist fellowship. We also gather this information from the evaluators, the panelists, etc. I'm not going to go through every single step and every question of this, but if you would like to see me go through it, I would point you towards the information session for the Core Writer program, where we do go through this step by step. But I want to highlight two specific things about this demographic form. One is we use this to track trends and data over time. This is not our way to get to know you the best as a playwright. This is not our way to evaluate whether or not you would be a good fellow. This is actually not connected to your the materials of your application at all. So this is really about us being able to say, over the past 6 years, here are some trends that we're seeing in who applies, who is involved in the selection process, who gets selected at the end of the day, all of those kinds of things. So sometimes I know folks see this and think, oh my gosh, I have to give my whole life story and my medical history and all these things I'm uncomfortable with sharing. Please don't feel the pressure to do that. You'll see you have a write-in option in all of these questions in case that is the easiest and most comfortable way for you to share some of this information. But this is not intended to be a full biography that we refer back to every time we think about you as an individual. It's about trends, power dynamics, and data over time. The other thing that I want to highlight, which you'll see highlighted multiple places on this form, is that this is not visible to any evaluators or panelists. Only the Playwright Center staff, specifically Pirronne, myself, Nicole A. Watson, our producing artistic director, have access to this form. And I say that because hopefully, and we have found that that being the case makes people feel a little more comfortable sharing some of this information. But also, if it is important to you that the evaluators know any of this information about you as they are engaging with your application or your play, you will need to put it somewhere else in the application. If it's important to you to say, you know what, I feel this connection to the community where this production is going to happen because of XYZ reason, you will not be able to say, as you see in my demographic form, I hold XYZ identities. The evaluators do not have access to the demographic form. So you will need to say, by the way, so you know, I hold XYZ identities, and this is why it's important for you to know that, or something like that. So just note that this is a completely staff-only form. So I'm going to just very quickly zip through these answers as if I'm answering it for myself. But again, if you have questions about how to answer the questions or have thoughts about it, please feel free to reach out to us. A couple of things that we ask for if you want to expand. The reason we ask for or we make that space to expand on some of your answers is because we're constantly tweaking and trying to make this application process more clear, more accessible, to make it less as less of a burden as possible on our applicants. So if there are things that would make this process make a little bit more sense or go more smoothly for you, it's helpful for us to know those things. That's also one of the reasons we ask about non-English languages you use as a primary language. If we see a lot of data that, wow, a lot of our applicants primarily use this language other than English, then at a point where we have the capacity to put resources in multiple languages, that's kind of where we would start, if that makes sense. Every single question also has a decline to answer button that you are welcome to use on any or all of them. And now if you have feedback for us on the demographic form, this is where we make a lot of our changes from year to year based on this feedback from our applicants. Now the changes are saved, so I can continue to the next step. The attachments, again, the main part of the application. We are asking for a resume from you to help give the readers and the panelists a sense of your overall career outside of just this one play. This can be in any format that you like, as long as it is legible. We don't care about font size, margin size, how you lay it out. You may want to you can include kind of as much or as little information in this that fits in 1 to 2 pages. But kind of think about the overall package of your application. What are you saying in your various statements? If you're trying to decide kind of what information to include on your resume. The next thing we ask for is an artistic statement. This is about you and your work. This is not necessarily about the production, which will be handled in the next statement. So you want to kind of tee up this script for the evaluators and give context. Where do we find you in your artistic journey, in your career, in the development of your craft? We want to know about your overall vision, your body of work, your goals for the production, or the goals for how you see this play developing. For example, I might say, hey, you're seeing this play of mine. As a writer, it's really important to me that I'm exploring XYZ, or I'm using this process and I'm really excited to continue doing that with this play. Here's a couple ways I can see that manifesting with the support of this fellowship, whether the support means the financial support, the workshop support, the production support. This should be 1 page. I also do want to highlight that we recently, as in Monday night, taught a class on writing successful artist statements. That class includes a lot of great writing prompts and exercises to do as you create a statement. So if you're interested in receiving the transcript and slides from that session, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to share them with you. That may help you kind of put together this statement. Again, everything needs to be a PDF, so I'll upload that. Then this is the theater match statement from your perspective, which Pirronne talked a little bit about. So again, geography, community, the resources. Are there individual people you're really excited to work with. Do you as a writer have some specific artist care or access needs that having extra or more funds for a production would allow you to sort of have a better experience than maybe you've had in the past? You can kind of be creative, but again, you want to be in conversation with the theater to make sure you're not saying contradictory things or things that might make an evaluator think, I don't know that this is such a good match. You really want to make sure that you've talked things out. Then we ask for the full draft of the play. The play that was nominated, again, you can certainly have rewritten it. The one issue would be if it went from a full-length play to a short play. In that case, have a conversation with me about that. All of the plays that have been nominated are what we consider full length. But if you've cut it way down and want it to now be a 10-minute play or something, let's have a conversation about that. Again, we don't need to go through all of these specifics about the script because you know what the script is. But if it is a piece that involved a collaborator, say a composer or a lyricist, or someone else who contributed some text to the play, or you're quoting text in the play, do make sure that that is very clearly marked so that our evaluators know what they're evaluating when it comes to your individual work as a writer. Again, a PDF, and it'll tell you when it's processing and it will tell you when it's attached. So now our attachments are all set. There's no letter of recommendation for this application. Hooray. So we can get to the submit page. Again, the same things apply in terms of how the process is going to work. So I will click the submit button and we are all completed. So that is the overview of the applications. I'm going to stop my screen share. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to hang out for a few more minutes. I know we've gone over time based on a standard hour, but I appreciate all of you sticking around so that we could go over all of these very specific details. Melanie, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say hi.
Hi, good to see you.
I came in a couple minutes late and I've been in the avatar and I just want to say hello. Thank you for doing this.
Fantastic. Yes, good to see you. Great. I'll hang out for a little bit to see if anyone has questions or thoughts, but otherwise, thank you so much. This video will be available on the site probably in about a day or two once we get it all edited together. But as always, I'm dropping my email in the chat. It is also everywhere all over the website. But feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk through things or have run into trouble or just need any kind of help putting your application together. And we're really, really excited to see these applications, to hear about your partnerships. The last thing I will say that if you are solidifying a partnership between yourself and a theater or yourself and a playwright, feel free to let me know about that. The playwrights all have a list of the theaters who've received the password to view the plays. And as you know, when you asked for that, I asked for contact information. So if you're already committed to a writer, I'll note that so then you won't constantly be inundated with communications from writers looking for a partner. So if you would like to kind of stop that flood, let me know and I'll be happy to note that you're already committed. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Julie, I had a very quick question.
Please, yeah.
Do you recommend that the playwright write what they plan on changing or developing in the script, like during the development process, like trying to get ahead of, like, I know no one's expecting like production ready draft.
Yeah, I think that if you know, and if you have things that you're excited to develop, I think that's a great thing to especially put in the artistic statement because you'll be able to do that development here at Playwrights Center in addition to with the theater. So that might be a great way to say, here's what I'm excited about being a fellow and having these development funds. I'll work with XYZ collaborator and I'll focus on this part of the play and I'm really excited. That can be a really useful thing. You don't have to know all those details at this point, but if you do, it might be really good to include.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nikki.
Bye.
I also had
Uh,
a question.
Yeah, what's up?
One of the playwrights, one is under commission with us currently, and we were just wondering if that would be a conflict of interest at all, or if that was okay if we kind of redid that.
Is the question they're currently under commission for a different play and you would apply with them for their nominated play?
It is a new commission, so she was considering developing it further with us, this same play, and we just wanted to make sure that that was okay. And if there was any kind of billing things that would get complicated if we did that.
That's a good question. I don't think I've encountered that before. Pirronne, what do you think?
I want to run this by the fund, but my instinct is that because it seems to me that this would be just like an augmentation of support. I don't think that that's necessarily a conflict. I think it would just mean it would require though that like that the terms of your commission align with the terms of the fellowship, where the playwright is compensated for rehearsal, they're compensated for, like that there's like a royalty sort of component and everything. So let me check in on this one, and I can get back to you on that. And
Liana, do you mind dropping your email address either in like a direct chat to one of us or something, just so that we're making sure we can get back to you?
Yeah, do that right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
yeah.
It's so helpful to get specific questions, and now I know things, or I will know things.
We will know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. We'll look into that and we'll get back to you.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to end the recording, not seeing any other questions at the moment.